A slippering at home was from a carpet slipper, but lasted longer than a slippering from the PE teacher, which would only be 6 whacks, at the most, but much harder from a black plimsoll with a rubber sole. I can't remember how many whacks I received from the carpet slipper at home, but I do remember that it didn't hurt very much. A slippering from a PE teacher was almost worse than the cane and invariably administered across a thin pair of shorts. The slipper I found worst was an old black rubber slip-on plimsoll that we had at home. It was very flexible, and had a sole that had worn smooth. It wasn't very big, but its mundane appearance was deceptive. It could deliver an intense burning sensation, and a lasting deep soreness. The slipper in school was usually given harder, as it was generally fewer whacks. There was a time factor too. At home bent-over spankings tended to go on longer with many more whacks. In-school classroom slipperings were a much quicker affair. Call to the front, bend over, a few hard whacks and back to your desk. All over in a minute or so. Of course, some schools gave slipperings more formally like proper school canings. These often incurred a visit to the headmaster. I have read of some mixed schools that caned the boys and slippered the girls. As I went to a boys-only school, I knew nothing of this back then. Home slipperings varied family to family. Some parents really spanked hard and often. It varied too, on the spot or before bed. At home I was spanked on the bottom either over the arm of our settee, or the side of my bed. With no brothers or sisters, at least I had some privacy. Spankings or slipperings at home were not always confined to sons. My wife and her sisters were punished by their mother. I'd heard other boys in junior school talking of being spanked at home. Until I was a little older, I was never spanked at home. I was curious about it and almost felt I was missing out on something. Then one day I'd really misbehaved. I'd wandered off after school for about an hour. My mum was worried sick. She was very relieved when I finally got home. Then later that evening I had my first spanking. At first the whacks didn't seem that bad, but as it went on my bottom began to sting and I had a sore bottom afterwards. Home slippering was certainly worse for me when I was a boy. My father was a strict disciplinarian and used an old plimsoll, which his father used on him. It certainly hurt more than school slipperings. That's not to say school slipperings did not hurt, they did, but they were limited to 6 whacks, although I did hear rumors of 12 whack slipperings. At school I never experienced one. At home father's minimum was 12 most of the time. I'm sure the lads who were spanked at home coped much better than those who weren't when they were caned or slippered in school. I remember getting 3 strokes of the cane with another lad when I was in 2nd year at grammar school. He bent over the headmaster's desk first and took his 3 without a murmur. I have to say that I squealed and wriggled when it was my turn. In my school we had to take a note home if we were caned. If we had the slipper in class there was no note. I'm not sure now quite what the note said. Something like, "It is regretted that it was necessary to administer corporal punishment to such and such today." The note had to be signed and returned next day. If I took a note home, my mother would quiz me as to why I'd been caned. She generally approved provided it was deserved. The boy who had been caned with me that day was concerned what his dad would said when he saw the note and feared he might have to bend over again at home that evening. How different school and home life was back then. There seemed to be quite a few well-spanked ones at my school. Mainly guys who were slippered at home, but a couple who were caned and a few who got the strap. They never seemed fazed at all when getting the slipper at school. Probably what they got at home was far worse. You're right, most were slippered at home, but mum or dad's hand across the bare bottom was quite effective too. There were the few who felt less common implements, back of a hair or clothes brush, a wooden spoon or similar. I knew a couple of brothers who had the cane from their dad. One of my friends have the strap from his parents. His mum did it straight away across his trousers, but his dad dealt with more serious misbehavior They seemed a perfectly normal family. My friend had a much older sister, who was newly married when I first knew him. It never occurred to me that she may have been punished in a similar way when she was younger. Parental spanking was seen and right and proper back in the 1950s or 60s. That said, not all parents used spanking on their children. How attitudes have changed. Attitudes certainly have changed. This would have been in the 70s, and I was a bit shocked and fascinated when I heard two of my classmates saying that they were caned at home by their fathers. I certainly also heard of friends getting more serious trousers down punishments, slipper and belt, for more serious things. As you write, they all seemed to come from very normal families, and there didn't seem to be any resentment. I, of course, had a great interest in hearing their tales of whackings at home.